we we've reached the really good part. We get to hear a bit from Sid, and to introduce this, we have Dr. Bill Pettit and Harry Derbitsky, and I'll just say a bit about them. And Joe, if you want to say a bit, both of these men have taught me a lot about the essence of what Sid has been pointing to. Harry, I know, knew Sid from way back, spent a lot of time with him, and was a very close personal friend of his. And every time I'm around Harry, I really do, whether he tells me or I just feel it from him, really feel that simple essence, just like we're hearing so much here, that it's just about love. It's just about everything's okay. And I really love that about how you share and how you are, Harry. And Bill, I've learned so much from you over the years as well. Bill is a psychiatrist. He's been sharing the principles since the early 80s, since he met Sydney Banks, and has the most amazing stories of hope and just what is possible in what we might consider some of the most extreme cases. And just those stories of hope and the conviction with which Bill shares just everything he's seen is really incredible.
Yeah, I would just add that both Harry and Bill, who were deeply affected by Sid, they are the perfect people to introduce him in this video, because they exude such honor and respect for where all of this came from. Really the roots of all of our work get traced back to Sydney Banks' experience, his own enlightenment, his own realization of these principles. We would not be here were it not for Sid. So in deepest gratitude, we'll pass it off to Harry and Bill to say a few words about themselves and Sid before we start a video. And then Amy, I don't know if we're going to do any closing remarks or not. Everyone seems pretty full, but we'll play it by ear after the video.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously everyone is full, so just relax and take it easy. Really, there's nothing to get when you listen to Sid. It either comes in or it doesn't. And I wanted to first say that Sid would be very proud of this conference. I know him, I know what he looks for. He'd love the feeling, the sharing, and the fruit that was exhibited here. And that would really, he wouldn't stop talking about how beautiful this conference has been. Now I want to take you a little bit into the world of spiritual psychology of Sydney Banks. And within it, in 1973, he had his enlightenment experience, and it was a two-stage experience. The first stage was the psychological component, where he experienced there's no such thing as insecurity, it's just thought. And then 4 days later, he had his white light experience, where he walked through and changed 100%, where the people couldn't even recognize him, and so on. And then when I came in 1976, there was about 30 people on Salt Spring who were listening to Sid. And there were a few people in Nanaimo, like Elsie and so on. And we were all struck by the good luck of finding an enlightened human being. It seemed impossible that an enlightened human being we could live and be friends with and hang out with him. And that's what we would do. We would go over to his house, and he'd have a fire blazing and a panoramic view of the ocean. And his wife would come in, and then it was Barb, his first wife, who died of a thing in her head. And she'd come in with tea, and she'd say, "Has he got to the good stuff yet?" They'd say, "No." Now she'd go, and she'd come back a little later looking for the good stuff. And we were all caught by this feeling. And the feeling of oneness, the feeling of family, the feeling of unity was just amazing. And it was before the three principles. And so what did he talk about? To be honest, 98% of it was spiritual. He just talked about the spiritual identity, the truth within yourself. Truth and wisdom were two of the biggest words. And what did he talk about in psychology? Not too much, but what he said to us, watch your beliefs. And then at the beginning, he talked a lot about ego. And then he said, now you know what ego is, forget about it. But he didn't talk about it anymore. He just moved on back into the spiritual essence of life and so on. So it was a feeling of oneness and family and the luckiest people in the world. We were the only ones listening. And we were the fruit that attracted the psychologist. And the first psychologist to come in was Dr. Roger Mills. And he brought the rest of the people with him. And when he came in, at the first conference that they gave for the psychologist, which was at Cedar Beach, I wondered, he must change his talk because he's been talking nothing but spiritual. And now these psychologists have come in. And this is what he did. He only added a half a sentence. He said, what mind is, and he defined mind as, well, it's a psychological word for God. And then he added a half sentence and how it applies to life. What mind is, spiritual, and how it applies to life, psychological. And then guys like Bill and Joe and George and Roger, they took it and started to put it into a form that would be attractive to the world. They understood about the world and what it wanted to do. And then Sid would pull them back in and say, no, the purity of the principles is the key, not number of people. And so he kept emphasizing that this is the greatest secret, the greatest gift. And his whole purpose was to alleviate suffering. And in that shift to the psychologist, I got lost. I didn't like it, and I stopped growing. And I want to emphasize this. Why would I stop growing? And the answer was, I lost my gratitude for who and what he was sharing. And I was attached to the man rather than the essence of the message. That's the beauty of this conference. If the essence of the message is permeating all the way through. If you're attached to the man, because his enlightenment experience really was a joke. He said it was a fluke. So if it's a fluke, I'm a fluke. Bill's a fluke. We're all flukes of good luck. And why did he go into psychology? Well, in his autobiography that's not published, he clearly stated, I went into psychology because it picked me. He did not pick psychology. It picked him. It was spiritual. And the same thing that happened. Everybody went into the psychological, and I went into the indigenous world. It picked me. And then at age 69, addiction, alcoholism, and the three principles picked me. Imagine, 35 years go by, and I hardly grew. I grew incrementally, but at a certain point, I got happy and content. And so that's what I teach in addiction and alcoholism, happiness and contentment. That's what I learned from Sid. Be an ordinary person, appreciate the spirit that flows through you. And there was one guy from Jacqueline's. He says, you gotta have fun. And I'll tell you the truth, that's my motto. If you don't have fun, why waste your time? It's time to have a good time, guys. It's a beautiful life. So that essence, those teachings that he brought to me have become more alive in the last couple of years that all the other years that I was with him, and I was a good friend of his, and business as well. So he had two relationships, friendship and business. Anytime it got to business, I was in and out, in and out. Failures and different things happening in my life. And then at 69, it just all melted together. Here's the secret. You never lose it, guys. It's always there waiting for you. It's just, you can go on a little this or a little that. You know, they talk about relapses. It's nothing, nothing. It's just waiting for you. And then that's what happened. I said, I wonder what it was like when I was really listening to Sid. And I went back to it. There was that feeling just waiting for me. And when I picked it up, uncovered it, I found something. Now, how did Sid teach? This is important. How does he teach? So I've just got this job as the executive director of the Aboriginal Foster Children's Society, a very big, highfalutin job. And I come down to the island. Sid picks me. I have my car. I have a Nissan ZX Turbo 300 with a T roof. It's a beautiful day. He's got his dog, Fergus, and he says, come on, let's go down and let's get a bite to eat. So we go to Dagwoods and have a big dinner and stuff, or lunch, and just laughing and having a good time, hanging out. I was never afraid of Sid. A lot of people were afraid of Sid. I just didn't have time for that. And so he says, okay, let's go up to this mountain. We go up to this mountain with this dog, Fergus, whose head is shining out of the car. Sid loved Fergus. Oh, he loved Fergus. And the three of us went up to the top of this mountain, and he said to me, okay, shoot. Ask me any question you want. And I go, gee, this is unusual. I can ask him anything. So I start asking him spiritual questions because I wasn't interested in the psychological model. And after about 9 questions, he answered every question with, and it's all one. I went, gee, that's strange. Someone asked me a question, but I don't answer, it's all one, which is, of course, a big theme of Sid's, inside yourself. And so I asked the 10th question, and then it happens. You see, I'm not too linear in my thinking. I'm kind of more indigenous in my perspectives of life. And so all of a sudden, I'm standing in front of this cliff, panoramic view, and I physically see thought come out of my mouth into the abyss and boomerang back into me as a feeling. You see, I had experienced 4 or 5 minutes of silence on the island. And that silence was just pure consciousness. That's what mind is, pure consciousness. And that silence taught me that life was spiritual, but it didn't include thought. And that's, of course, why I was having trouble. It didn't include thought. And then all of a sudden, this second experience, it's all one, and it pours back into a feeling. I went, who's creating all my suffering? This boomerang is creating all my suffering. And when I had that, you think I would have everything, but I didn't, because I had thought separate, mind and consciousness, silence, and it was only when they became one did I really experience peace. The deep feeling that life is spiritual and life is a world of thought. And so his teachings made my life magical, starting at 69. Can you imagine at 27, I was on Salt Spring, and at 69, the world opened up and everything just started happening like crazy. People were being healed, projects were pouring in, People were phoning me up. It was beautiful. And I got to work with Greg Suki on addiction, alcoholism, and 3 principles. And he taught me about addiction. I didn't know anything. I'd never been addicted. So I never taken a psychology course. It turns out it's irrelevant. We're just teaching what we see. And with that small thing, I want to say, when you listen to Sid, don't think. Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Thank you, Harry. Or at least thank your brain for sharing its comments, as I say. Different, you don't have to fight them. Just let them pass through. So I really am, I've got my timer here. I'm going to 10.5 minutes at the most and try to do it in 10 minutes. And we Joe and I and Harry, we really, and Amy decided that really it's been a full day. And I've been with you since Greg this morning. I shared with them that I got myself going too fast and got exhausted yesterday. And I knew that I needed to just take a nap, and I did. But I look forward to hearing yesterday's with the recording. My name is Bill Pettit, and I am a retired psychiatrist. You know, I went to my 50-year reunion from medical school last October, and it was a good thing that we had name tags, because many of those people I had not seen since June 9th, 1969. And, you know, this has been very powerful today, and there's a lot of ways that I feel like I have nothing more to say. But one of the things that I will say is that I see people like Sandy and Joe and Mavis and people that I've known for 35 years plus, and I'm very touched. You know, so many people in our field, the burnout rate was average about 5 to 6 years, wasn't it, Joe? And here we're at 35 years, kind of really excited about what we do. And, you know, I turned 78 in May, and I've noticed that recently I've been scheduled as the last person on the show, as I did in London. And I'm thinking that maybe they figure if I die during the show, they'll have plenty of time to replace me with somebody. So if we put him last, you know, we'll have more time. So that's okay. I'm okay with that. So, so who thinks that's funny? That's not funny. No, I'm just kidding. So I agree with Harry. You know, Sid used to say that seriousness and discomfort is to mental illness as damp and dark is to fungus. It makes it grow. And love and lightheartedness is to mental illness as sunlight and dry is to fungus. It eradicates it. I try to remember that, you know, try to remember that. And just a couple of thoughts that have come, it was so wonderful to hear Mavis's story, that child. And I don't disagree with Sandy that just even us being in a beautiful state of mind affects the consciousness of the world. But I also want to say that I think it also gives us clarity. So like that little girl, we see if there is something to do, and we do it. We do the next right thing, and we're much more able to do that when we're at peace, because that divine thought system is coming through unabated. It's coming through unabated. I have dear Liza, and I recently sent a email to Shane, and just saying, please get Dear Liza printed again as soon as possible, if you can. Because as far as the feeling, I love this. Again, I tell you, look very closely, my daughter, at love and compassion, for they are two magical feelings that will guide you through life. Such feelings are more powerful than any king's army. And I know there's a lot of talk these days about it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be upset. And the grain of truth in that is that that's part of the human condition. We certainly are going to get lost in our thinking. We're going to become a lost thinker. But I also, what I heard today echoed was that when I am a lost thinker, my number one job is to take care of myself, get back in the present, and allow the feeling to come back again. That anything I do in that lost state is less likely to be to have a solution to it. And I'll quote two very famous American philosophers. Well, one is a Norwegian philosopher. It's the Trolls from Frozen 1. And the Trolls sing this wonderful song, and it's called, you know, if you have grandchildren, you watch things like Frozen and Frozen 1. And the Trolls are singing this song, and it has a lot of truth in it. It's called a fixer-upper. Well, he's a fixer-upper, but, you know, and then it finally says something about, you know, we're all fixer-uppers, which is, but then they have this wonderful statement. Everyone makes bad decisions when they're angry, scared, or stressed. The best you can do if you come upon somebody like that is to throw a little love at them. That's from the Trolls. These 40 little slow, little hairy things, right? The other one, what'd you say, Harry?
I said easy with these hairy things.
The other one is a great American philosopher, Gilda Radner, who too soon gone, when she played Rosanna, who was supposed to be kind of the spacey, but she would come up with, she'd say things that made no sense, and then she'd zing, and she says, Jane, you know what? It's always something. So when people say, you know, I was doing really well until X, Y, and Z happened, I go, yeah, you know, like Rosanna used to say, it's always something. Right now it's a pandemic, among other things, right? It's always something. But it's wonderful to know that there's no something that in itself has the power to take us away from a state of divinity, or whatever you want to call it, if that scares you, that universality of a beautiful feeling. I have a friend in Czech Republic who they have 400 people in their free group, Joe. Their goal is to make the Czech Republic the happiest country in the world in 5 years. They already have 400 people meeting every week. And he has 25 astrophysicists that are employed by him. He said, they're much more smart than I am. And he was a scientist. He had no spirituality. It didn't, not in his world. But he said, when I heard the principles and I heard Sid Banks, I suddenly, universal, you know, I think people forget that universal is a really big word. It's really big. So is a principle. And when you put them together, it's really, really big. And he said, I saw, as I listened to the people that I work with, that the whole universe, I really saw what Harry talked about, the oneness. I saw that the universe is intelligent. I saw that the universe was conscious. And I saw that it was creative. Mind, consciousness, and thought. I saw that. And I saw that there's a guidance system in the universe. And one of the first things you're going to hear on this tape, which I think I listened to about 10 times before I heard it, is Sid's going to say, you have a spiritual guidance system inside of you that is guiding you every single second of your life, if you can listen to it. I tell people, if the wisdom was coming through a harp or a violin, it's hard to hear the harp or the violin if you've got the Minnesota marching band playing in your head. And I am still learning to go from fast and furious to calm and curious. I still get a C- in that after 37 years. But it's incremental, and I'm going in the right direction. And that gives me hope. I catch myself. Yesterday, I would have in the past gotten sick with vertigo or a kidney stone or my back out or something, but I've gotten at least more sensitive to. I woke up in the middle of the night and I said, Bill, you're exhausted. Yes, it'd be nice to watch all of Friday and Saturday, but you need today to take care of yourself, as somebody said earlier, and get rested. So you've got something on Saturday. So with that, I'm going to stop, and I guess we're ready to roll. And thank you. It's a real honor and a pleasure to have been here to speak. And I'm glad I made it to the 5th day and was still alive to do this. So I am really, by the way, I'm as far as I know, I'm in good health. So I don't mean to be having people say, "Oh, I think Pettit's dying," right? I don't, never know, but I'm doing fine. So anyway, Peter, I'm ready for you to let it roll if you are.
Thanks for your intro, you guys.
This weekend will be quite short. It'll be deep, but short. And after we finish, I'd love you to just go out and do whatever you want and try and get yourself in a state of meditation. That is a tranquil mind. And that's what you're looking for, is a tranquil mind. This is why people meditate all over the world. They try and tranquilize their personal mind. Personal mind with all its problems and all its inhibitions, they vanish. And in its place comes what we call divine mind. And divine mind, again, is before the creation of form, before the contamination of the personal thinking. And if you can get back to there, that is what you call, some of those mystics would call, going home. You go home to where you belong. And people will say, well, this may take years. I hear some people talking about going to India, and going up the Himalayas, and talking about it's going to take years and years of practice to do this. That's not true. You're already there. You truly are. The only thing that stops you from seeing this is your own thoughts. And this is where the missing link is, thought. The missing link that all psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, and all human beings are looking for is thought. And if you can find the secret to thought, you'll find the secret to life. Just listen. And please, I know this sounds strange. I'm sitting here talking to you. Don't listen to my words. If you listen to my words, you can find an argument. I'm trying to explain the unexplainable via the word. And if you can go past the word, deep into your own inner soul, you'll find the answer. Because soul is pure consciousness. As you lose your consciousness, you lose your sanity. If you want to go home, you have to retrieve it back. And the only way you can retrieve it is throw away the old and let the new in. It's your birthright. It's everybody's birthright. As I said before, we're all spiritual beings walking on this planet, wondering where we came from, looking for the secret to life, looking for the secret to happiness. And what do? We look outside, which is quite natural. We go to India, we look for the truth. Some people go up the Himalayas see the monks to look for truth. Some go other places. No matter where you go, you take it with you. Because every human being in this world is the truth in disguise. Just listen. And if you don't understand, it really doesn't matter, because I don't know anyone in the world they understand. It's a feeling. And once you get this nice feeling, then the understanding comes later. A lot of people listen and they'll say, I have no idea what that guy just said. And I remember one time there was about 200 people. And this woman got up and she said, Sid, I don't have a clue what you just said. And I said, that's good. She said, what do you mean it's good? And I said, please, just sit down. And she sat down. And I said to the 200 people, is there anybody in this hall knows what I'm saying? Put your hand up. There was one hand went up. And that one hand argued with me all weekend. So, you're not looking for an intellectual understanding. It doesn't matter how much education you have or you haven't. It doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. It doesn't matter the condition of your life, whether it be good, bad, or deplorable. It doesn't matter. Truth will take you out of it if you just listen. It will guide you through life, because in actual fact, you're being guided by a spiritual force far, far greater than you. And you're always being guided. Ever since day one, you were guided. But your own mind doesn't know that. Your own mind, with this, what we call the ego, this image of self-importance, that's the big problem. So we'll see what we can do this weekend. Mind, consciousness, and thought. They're the three principles that let us relate to reality. They're the three principles that let us live in this world called what we call reality. They're the guide. And if you use them properly, you will be guided. And this is where some people call faith. If you have enough faith that those three principles, left alone, will guide you through life, they'll take you from the most deplorable conditions to happiness. No matter what. And a lot of people say, well, that's okay for you, Sid, but what about me? I live in this horrible situation. It doesn't matter. It's got nothing to do with this world. You're not looking for anything from this world. You're looking from an inner world. You know how the great mystics of the world throughout time have always said, look within for the answer? Well, I'm saying the same thing. You have to look within. And within is not inside your body. It's just an expression to say that you've already got it. It's deep in your soul. That's what within is. It's deep within your soul. And if you can clear your soul, you'll clear your eyes, because the eyes truly are the windows to the soul. Whatever you see, that's how you live. However you think, that's how you live. We have 5 senses: tasting, smelling, seeing, etc., etc. You all know them. On their own, they are totally useless. They have no life of their own. Not until they're amalgamated with mind, consciousness, and thought. These are the 3 principles that bring life into our whole system. They are life. They are life before form. Ignore the form, go back into the spiritual, and you'll find your answer. Now, I know in this room right now, there's almost every kind of religion known. And I'm going to ask you to be very patient with me, and because all the major religions in the world, they all have the answer. But it's hidden. It's hidden in a maze of thoughts, ideas, concepts. And there is no thought, no concept in this world holds the truth. No matter what you think it is, it isn't. People will say to me, well, how can you say that, Sid? Because how do you know what I'm thinking? It doesn't matter what you're thinking. It doesn't matter what your concept is. You're wrong. There is not one concept in this world holds the truth. You have to go beyond all those concepts, ideas, etc., etc. And where do you find it? In the stillness of your mind, in the quiet chambers of your mind. This is where the rebirth takes place, and you go from the known to the unknown, from the physical to the spiritual. Now, there is no end to this answer. So if anybody ever gets cocky and says, oh, I know what the three principles are, mind, consciousness, and thought. You get a 5-year-old to figure that one out in 2 minutes. That's not the answer. That's just words. But when you go deeper inside yourself and you find the answer you're looking for and you share it with a patient, and that patient hears beyond your word, and a little light goes on their head, a little spiritual light goes on, and it brings out what is called inner knowledge. The mystics talk about true knowledge. What is true knowledge? Another word for it is wisdom. And wisdom is spiritual intelligence before the contamination of human thought. That's what wisdom is. And that's what you people have been finding. And keep going. Never close your mind. Never think, never get cocky and let your old ego think that you've found something. Just be grateful for what you have found. Be grateful for something that has changed your life. Be grateful for something that's changed your marriage. Be grateful for something that you can hand to your children. And it's a feeling. Gratefulness is a feeling. You're looking for a feeling. That's why I'm saying to you, don't listen to the words. Look for a feeling. And if you leave this room today and you have a nice feeling, you're getting it. You might not get it today, you might get it tomorrow. You might clue in when you're driving down the highway, and all of a sudden you think, that's what he meant. Got it. From then on, your life will never, never be the same. Because once you have gone up to a certain level and seen the newness, you never come back again. It's not good enough. And another trap is never try and go higher, because you're searching for something you don't know. Be grateful, that feeling. And if you can get that grateful feeling, it will take you higher. And the longer you keep that feeling, those nice thoughts, the more you will expand the boundaries of your mind. Because that's what we've done. We've put boundaries on our own thinking capabilities. I've had 1,000 people say what I'm talking about is impossible. How come I'm here? It's not impossible. There is nothing impossible. Not when you go to the spiritual side of life. We all have what we're looking for. You know the old saying, I am that which I seek. That's what I'm talking about. Nobody in this world, nobody is greater than anybody here. Nobody is more spiritual than everybody in this room. No matter who you are, no matter what the condition, everybody in this world has the same spiritual knowledge within themselves. You know how they say love is always the answer? Because love is a mind that isn't contaminated. It sees beyond the physical to the spiritual part of every human being. That's what true love is. True love is understanding. No, it's very, very natural that we all go astray. It's the most natural thing in the world. You have a baby, and it comes into this world. The moment it comes into this world, it has actually come from the spiritual into the physical. The second that baby arrives into the physical, it's contaminated because it sees the physical. It sees what you call the great illusion. And the great illusion is life. Life as you know it. And that's why some of those gurus from India and people, they talk about the great illusion, the great awakening. Because you go from a dream state and you awaken to realize who and what you are. And who and what you are is not your name, not a physical, it's spiritual. And when you go back into that spiritual and you find out who you are, there's where your happiness lies. There's where your sanity lies. Because you start to decontaminate yourself.
Good.
And part two is there's a second part to that for those who want to see it on sidbanks.com website.
Right.
Oh, he's got it there. Excuse me. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you for that, Harry and Bill, for sharing that and introducing it. And I don't think there's much more to say. I don't know about all of you, but I'm full up to here. And I'm just filled with a lot of gratitude for all the people that made this possible. You know, from Amy, you and I having that first conversation, we said, you know, we really should put on a conference on addiction. There's so much happening. You listening and catching that ball. And ever since then, it's just little by little, it kept attracting more and more people, and the planning committee of more than 30 people, and Peter on the steering committee, and Barbara, the four of us kind of steering the larger group, and then all the faculty, and then all of you who came and showed up today and yesterday. So thank you everybody for listening, for being open, for sharing from your heart. I don't want to commit to anything, but I think we started something really, really beautiful here. We'll see where it goes. And Amy, you want to say anything?
I can't add anything better than that. Just thank you so much for everyone. And like Joe said, thank you all for showing up and listening. The listening and the openness here over these last 2 days has been beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, everybody's been so down to earth, ordinary, and real. It felt so real. That's what strikes me. Everybody was just so authentic and so sincere. There's no pretense. It's just being yourself. Like I said, just be yourself. It's that simple. So thank you all, and we hope we see you down the trail, as we say in northern Minnesota. See you down the trail.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Amy, so much. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.